Welcome everyone. Hope you're all doing well. So I'll start off the presentation today. And again, we're talking about the 3 secrets to managing a healthcare crisis without destroying family relationships. Okay. So what you're going to learn is the 3 secrets to managing a healthcare crisis, critical communication channels to keep open because life is a dialogue, and why you should dust off your power of attorney documents. Brittany's going to be reviewing estate planning must. This is for you if you are worried about unexpected hospital or nursing home visits that will devastate your life savings. You're worried about creating emotional hardships and disagreements between family members, or you're worried about losing your life savings and everything that you worked so hard to save. Now imagine that you could crack open the lock on your long-term care planning safe, and you could protect your spouse, your beneficiaries, you could avoid family conflict, you would have no unknown fears about long-term care costs, who will pay the bill, and most important, you would have peace of mind no matter what challenges tomorrow may bring. So we're gonna get a testimonial from Carol. Now, Carol came to us because her brother was in a nursing home and she lived out of state. She was referred to us by another law firm and they told her they could not help her. Luckily, she came to us, and after her first meeting, she said she felt extremely confident knowing that the staff here had the knowledge to help her brother. Now, like a lot of us, we don't think about long-term care and what that's going to do to us. But oftentimes, if you don't have a plan in place, you're really leaving a burden for your family who are going to have to pick up the pieces. So luckily, we were able to help Carol help her brother, but that's not always the case. If somebody has lost mental capacity, we may be in a situation where there's really just nothing we can do. And that's why pre-planning is just so important, so that if somebody does find themselves in a long-term care situation, they have everything in place so their family does have peace of mind. Brittany?
All right, thanks, Tammy. So I'm just going to take a minute here to introduce who I am. So I am one of the attorneys here at Steinbacher, Goodall, and Yurchak. I'm also a nationally certified attorney as an elder law attorney, and that's through the National Elder Law Foundation. And I've been with the firm for about 6 years now. And really what my role is I lead the long-term care planning department, but then I also help assist families to help administer the planning that we did after their loved one passed away. So because of that, I'm really able to assist families and loved ones with a broad range of issues, whether you're looking to set up your basic estate planning documents that we're going to talk about here in a bit, or maybe you're worried about more asset protection, what happens if you get sick, you need long-term care, or even just making sure that your plan is implemented after you pass away. I can also assist your beneficiaries, your loved ones, helping make sure everything gets administered correctly then after you pass away. But we really do work in a team approach here. So we work with a team of long-term care planners, support staff to really make sure that we're providing the best planning that's possible, the best advice that's available. So I'm going to hand it over to Tammy to take a minute to introduce what she does.
Okay, thanks, Brittany. Okay, and as Brittany said, my name's Tammy Zielski. I'm a long-term care planner. So what that means is I help people in the pre-planning, pre-crisis planning stages, looking at their estate planning, what assets they want to protect. And then I'm also a certified Medicaid planner. So if people are in a crisis situation, I can assist them through navigating the Medicaid application process and getting the benefits that they need. I'm also certified as a dementia practitioner, and I hold an insurance license. Although, to be clear, we do not sell insurance products here. It was mainly for educational purposes that I got that. I've been with the firm for a little more than 14 years now. And prior to my work at the law firm, I worked as a hospice social worker and a home and community-based care manager. Now, how I got here, I started my career really at a young age as a candy striper at the Williamsport Hospital. And it was through this volunteer position that I really fell in love with helping vulnerable adults, and it led me to pursue a career in social work. And although I've always been a very strong client advocate, my advocacy skills really fell short without legal intervention. And I found that working alongside the knowledgeable attorneys at the law firm has really allowed me to leverage the ability to help clients get the benefits and services that they need. And at some point, we will be opening our resource center again and having in-person seminars. But the law firm has always been very passionate about resource education. And that includes these seminars, as well as free initial consultations where we can talk with clients about options available to them for in-home care, assisted living care, nursing home care, and all the different benefits out there. So that is something that myself as a long-term care planner would help you with. And then we also have Kristen Doherty, who is a long-term care planner in the State College area, who can assist clients in that area. This is a picture of my gram, and I've introduced her before in seminars. And really, I put this picture on here because I thought it was important that you understand that it's not just a professional passion that I have in helping people. It's also a personal journey that we took as a family and watching my grandmother go through Alzheimer's disease. And although she was in a nursing home for about 6 years of her life, we saw this disease really just ravage through her for more than 10 years. And we saw the effects of caring for her at home by her spouse and her family, and then the benefit of what nursing home care did provide to her. So we know that this is a really tough journey for people who've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or any related dementia or any physical disability that does require long-term care. So it is a real concern that we all should be aware of, because nobody does plan on getting sick like this. So through this seminar, we do hope that you get this one thing. Planning ahead is essential to make sure that your family is taken care of and that you do not spend any more than necessary on long-term care. So the secret code in your long-term care journey is really knowledge, and that's knowing what your available payment options are that might help you save thousands of dollars, communication techniques to really extinguish the flames of family squabbles. So Brittany will be talking more about that with the estate planning. And advantages of using a trust to protect assets. That sounds kind of scary, but we're going to really talk to you a little bit more about how trusts are user-friendly and can be utilized to really make sure that assets are protected. So the first secret is knowing the methods to pay for care. So I'm going to go over the 5 different methods pretty briefly. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but certainly if you have any questions about it, you can reach out to me. So the first one is private pay. And private pay is really, you use your own money to pay for care. And the average cost of assisted living is anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a month. Nursing home care in Pennsylvania is around $11,000 average per month. So with private pay, unless you have a lot of savings, you typically are only going to have a certain amount of assets to cover your cost of care. Veterans benefits is another way to pay for care. And we often find that that is best utilized for in-home care or assisted living because the pension rates vary between $1,000 to a little over $2,000. And that would be for veterans or their spouse who would have served during a qualifying war period, been honorably discharged, and served at least 90 days during a qualifying war period. And with that benefit, what they'll do is the VA will actually give you a monthly pension if you meet eligibility. And you can use that to pay for the in-home care or assisted living or nursing home care. But because the benefit is, a little less than $2,000 a month, you're going to find that it's not really sufficient to cover nursing home if you find yourself in that situation. The next type of payment source would be long-term care insurance. And that's often coupled with private pay because long-term care insurance is usually not enough to cover the private daily rate. So right now, the private daily rate of care in a nursing home is about $364 a day. Most long-term care insurance policies I see are anywhere from $100 to $250 a day. So there typically is a shortfall with that. And with long-term care insurance, regardless of what the daily benefit is, it's typically going to have a maximum payment. That could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, it could be less. Policies that were unlimited, that would cover care for the rest of your life, are no longer sold. But I do have the fortune of working with some clients that did get those unlimited policies, but we are not going to find those as being available anymore. The other thing to be aware of with long-term care insurance is that you do have to meet underwriting. So you can't apply for long-term care insurance when you have a medical diagnosis that's going to look like you need long-term care. So if you have dementia or you have some sort of progressive physical disability, you're not going to be eligible for that. So it is really something that you should be looking at in your early 50s, early 60s, maybe 70s if you're healthy. But the older you are, the more expensive those policies do get, even if you do meet the insured criteria. The next type of insurance that would pay for care is Medicare. And this would also include Medicare Advantage plans. Now with Medicare or Medicare Advantage plans, they are only going to pay for care for a short period of time. So that would be after a medical event like a broken hip or a fall or something like that, that you do require rehab. But once you get to the point where you're no longer progressing in your therapy, they would stop paying for your care and you would become private pay. So you can't rely on that for long-term care needs. And then finally, Medicaid is what most people qualify for to pay for their care in a long-term care facility, because Medicaid is really something that would pay for care for the rest of your life once you meet financial criteria. The Medicaid rules are very confusing and very detailed in how to qualify for the benefits. So if you are married, there are spousal impoverishment rules that would allow your spouse to protect a certain amount of assets. If you're widowed or single, those rules do not exist, and you basically need to have less than either $2,400 in assets or $8,000 in assets. So the qualifying factors for Medicaid are very, very complex, and that is something that we are able to help you with to ensure that you could get those benefits. Now, even though I talked about the 5 different ways to pay for care, only one of them is actually permanent, and that would be Medicaid benefits. So providing you would qualify for those benefits, they would be there to help pay for your care for the rest of your life, which is a real relief to people, who are going to be in a facility for a long period of time. Now, how do you guarantee that you get Medicaid eligibility? Well, it's not guaranteed. So like I said, the process is pretty cumbersome to meet the qualifications. Pre-planning is definitely a must if you want to guarantee that you would qualify. And that means 5 years in advance of the crisis. But if you find yourself in a situation where you need care today, I would definitely consider calling our office, because we can help guide you to get the benefits that you might need at this point. We may not be able to protect everything though, and that's really the whole point of a 5-year look back and making sure that the pre-planning is in place so that you can protect as much as possible. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Brittany now.
All right, thanks, Tammy. Well, the second secret that we really want to touch base on is really having a clear communication channel with your family, your loved ones, whoever you're looking to appoint as decision makers, because they really need to know, what the tough decisions are going to be, what they're going to be faced with. And some of the toughest decisions that you're going to have to start thinking about is, well, what happens if I get sick? Who's going to step up, start making these decisions for me? Or what's going to happen after I pass away? Who's going to handle everything for me then? Where are my assets going to go? And these are really tough things to think about. Nobody wants to think about getting sick or passing away, but it really is crucial to start thinking about this, starting the process now, and getting all of the key decision makers in place. So, if there ever is a crisis, everyone knows where your documents are located, who's appointed, who can step up, where your assets are. And really that organization is going to be the key to make sure that everything is taken care of very effectively and streamlined for you as possible. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't even know how to start thinking about these decisions. What decisions do I have to be making? Who do I have to be talking to and informing of things? Well, there really is a very nice starter guide. So we have the website here up on the PowerPoint for you. It's the conversationproject.org. And if you go to that website, you'll see they have a bunch of different resources specifically about healthcare power of attorneys, appointing a healthcare proxy, living wills. And the starter guide really goes through, what are your specific healthcare wishes? How much information would you want? Who do you need to be talking to? And really, what are the decisions that you need to be outlining right now? So that's a really helpful tool just to make families, sure that they're all on the same page. There's not going to be any disagreements between children about what your wishes are, what would be best for you if you get down or you get sick. So check that out. That's a really good resource if you're really not sure where to start at this point. And then again, it's really important to make sure that you do have a healthcare proxy appointed. And we're going to talk a little bit later here about a power of attorney document. Especially that and a living will, because a living will is really going to outline, well, what if, you can't recover? What if you're permanently in a coma or there's no realistic hope of recovery? Would you want a feeding tube, pain relieving drugs, life support? So all of those are really key decisions that you need to start thinking about right now. And then all of that is going to really start by having good estate planning documents in place. And we're going to go over what those documents are and what I mean by good estate planning documents. And then especially if you're thinking about, asset protection or what happens if you get sick and you need long-term care, you need to go into a nursing facility. We're going to talk a little bit about an irrevocable trust and how that might be a good option. And then it's always important to have a comprehensive plan. So it doesn't just start with the legal documents and appointing decision makers. It's really having those tough discussions, having the estate plan, and having a good team of advisors in place. And that's all going to be part of having a long-term healthcare plan. All right, so what are the essential estate planning documents? Well, it's really going to be having good power of attorney documents in place and a last will and testament. So those are what I mean by basic estate planning documents. And what I mean by good is everyone says, well, I have a power of attorney. I signed it back in, 1985. Isn't it still good? Aren't they all the same? Well, that's not really the case. So a power of attorney is not a static document that's going to be good forever because the law changes, life changes. Maybe who you appointed has passed away or they're sick themselves and they wouldn't be able to step up for you. So a power of attorney is something that even if you have, you need to still get it reviewed. And it's a document that anyone over the age of 18 really needs to have in place. Because what a power of attorney does is it really allows you to appoint an individual that, if you get sick, you can't make decisions for yourself. That document allows them to step up and start making those decisions for you. So what our office does is we actually have several different power of attorneys that you would sign. So one of the most important ones is a financial power of attorney. So again, if you get sick, you can't pay your bills, you can't deal with your real estate or your assets. This is really going to be a key document. And we try to make ours as comprehensive as possible. So the thing to kind of take away from a power of attorney is it's only as good as what's contained in the document. So if they don't have a specific power or something's not outlined, that's whenever your agent's going to run into some problems. They won't be able to really do any planning or really take care of their duties to the full extent. So we try to make ours as comprehensive as possible, and we have some long-term care powers that we also include. And, one of the common misconceptions I hear is, well, I just want my kids to handle that, or if something happens to me, my spouse can just automatically get access to that information. Well, that's really not necessarily the case. So the law no longer presumes that you want your spouse to be the one to make these decisions, or you want your kids to make these decisions. And what would happen is if you don't have a power of attorney in place and you were to get sick, no one can pay your bills, no one can talk to your doctors, make your medical decisions. That's when you're going to be faced with what's called a legal guardianship proceeding. So that's really a formal court proceeding where someone would actually have to go before a judge. They would have a hearing, and then it would be up to the judge to decide who's going to be making those decisions for you. So you can imagine if you're already in a crisis, you're in a nursing home, like Tammy said, that's about $11,000 a month. If no one's able to pay those bills, you're going to have a really exorbitant bill until someone can get appointed. So it really limits the protection measures that we can do and how much planning could be done, if it would have been done, excuse me, in advance of the crisis. And then you also lose control because it's really not you deciding who's making those decisions for you. It's going to be a judge. And I've seen it sometimes where the kids don't agree. So they appoint an independent third party. It might be a guardianship agency or somebody that you really would not want making those decisions for you. So a good thing about a power of attorney is you can name who you would trust to step in and really make those decisions because you know your family best, more than a judge would or anybody else that were to step in and kind of look in from the outside. And, I talked about a financial power of attorney, but it's really good to have a healthcare power of attorney too. So that's really going to allow someone to make those medical decisions for you. Again, if you get down, you can't tell the doctor what your wishes are. You can't consent to surgery. And then we talked a little bit then about the living will. That's also important because that's going to really outline your end of life decisions, whether you want CPR, life support, breathing machine. All of those are really tough decisions to put on your loved ones if it's not specifically outlined, because there can be a lot of guilt, oh, I don't know, if mom would have wanted this or what would dad have wanted. So that's why it's really important to start that conversation so it avoids any of those disputes down the road. And then what the pre-planning really does is it's really going to help also protect your spouse because we've seen, where one goes in the nursing home, you want to make sure that your spouse living at home is going to have enough money to really, continue their way of life, make sure they can keep the real estate and everything is protected with them. All right. So one of the ways to make sure that your spouse and your loved ones are protected is by possibly setting up what's known as an irrevocable trust. So I know this tends to scare people a little bit. They're like, oh, is that something just for rich people or a bank has to manage that? But the key to take away is it's really not just for rich people. If you have, a bank account with $10,000 and that's your life savings and you want to make sure it's protected, a trust may be an option for you. That's something that we can discuss. And we try to make it as user-friendly as possible. So you can still manage the assets that we were to put in the trust. So even though it's irrevocable, which means, you can't change the trust and you can't, take the assets back out, you can still decide what you put into the trust. You can still decide how those assets are managed. So for example, if you were to put real estate in a trust, you can sell that down the road, buy another house, put that into the trust. You're still making all of those management decisions. And then again, even though you don't have the direct access to really withdraw the money from the trust, because that's what protects it from the nursing home. If you had direct access to write the checks or, take all the money out, the nursing home would say, great, get everything out of the trust, use it to pay for your care. So what we do is we have to give that power to another individual. So we kind of put a back door in our trust where we understand life happens. You might put an investment account in the trust with $100,000 and you might need a new roof down the road, or you might need access to that money. So that's where you can appoint a third party, whether it's your kids or someone that you were to trust, where you can actually go to them and say, hey, I need this money out of the trust, and they can get it out for you. So even though, like I said, it has to be irrevocable, and that's really where you get the asset protection, there are still ways that you can still manage the money and you can still keep a lot of control over the assets and still actually get access just by a third party. All right, so what do you really need to be thinking about doing right now? Well, it's really important to review your estate planning documents. So again, if you already have a power of attorney in place, review your makers, make sure it's current with the law, because there are constant law changes regarding documents, especially the financial power of attorney. There was a pretty substantial law change in January of 2015. So if your power of attorney is dated before that, it would be good to have it reviewed just to make sure it's up to date, has everything in the new law that it's required, and that whoever you appointed is still healthy, able to serve, still living. So it's really important that they're going to be able to step up in the event of that crisis. And then it's good to have good legal documents. So again, like I said, a power of attorney is only as good as the powers that are listed specifically in the document. And we don't want to run into a situation where they would come to us and say, hey, there's a house, there's an investment account, we need to do some planning, but yet you wouldn't have capacity, so you couldn't do that planning for yourself. That's where a good power of attorney becomes essential, because you have to have those powers listed so that we could work with them and do some planning on your behalf. And what all of that does is that's really going to avoid putting your family in a bad situation. They're not going to have to go through the legal guardianship process, where it's the court hearing before a judge. There is not going to be fighting between siblings about what mom and dad would have wanted, because you're going to have it outlined. So it really just streamlines and makes sure that you're fully protected if you or your spouse were to get sick. All right. So here's just a statement from Roger Baker, who worked with us here in our Williamsport office. So he said, I went to see them because of my parents, who are both in a nursing home. I was very pleased with what they did to help cover the bills. I really didn't know what to expect and if they would be able to do anything. They made things so easy. I'd ask around and I was told that this law firm was where I needed to go. They came very highly recommended, and I can now see why. They stepped right in and helped to settle my parents' estate and make sure the nursing home expenses were paid. I tried to do some of the estate work on my own at first, and it was a lot harder than I thought. That's why I'm glad I made the decision to get their help. And that's really, a story that we hear all the time is, if you try to go it alone, you think, oh, well, I don't really need to get an attorney involved. It seems pretty straightforward. Well, it's not. The Medicaid rules are very complicated, and they make them that way on purpose. And the same with handling estate administration after someone passes away. You always need to get an elder law attorney involved if you're facing long-term care or if you're worried about protecting assets, because unfortunately, the longer you wait, sometimes the less we can protect. So if you start early, that's really guarantees that everything's going to be in place well ahead of the crisis, and we can protect a lot more, and you have a lot more options. All right, so what did we learn today? What are the key takeaways? Well, asset preservation in ahead of the crisis is a must. Now, keep in mind, there are still ways that we can protect assets, even if someone is already in a nursing home. So don't let that scare you. We can still protect usually about half, depending, on certain factors. But planning ahead of the crisis really guarantees that you can protect as many assets as you want, because you're going to really have that option to be healthy, get through any look back periods, set up trust, and make sure that all of that's protected. And then again, I can't stress this enough, just having good basic estate planning documents, because those really are the foundation of every asset protection plan. So they are going to be the key documents that everyone needs to have: a power of attorney and a last will and testament. And then just remember, it really is a team approach. So you're not alone. Just having a good set of advisors, whether it's the elder law attorney, accountants, financial advisors, we really all work together to make sure that all of your goals are met and everything is handled appropriately for you. All right, so just another testimonial from one of our clients. This is Joseph, that again, we worked with in Williamsport. I can't see myself using another law firm. I came into the office upset and worried. When I left, I felt calm and relieved. That meant so much to me. Thank you so much. And that's really, why we're here. That's what we hear all the time is, people don't know where to start. They don't know what documents they need. But once you go through this process and you get everything in place, you just feel a peace of mind, because you know what's going to happen. If you get sick or if you pass away, it just really takes a lot of that stress and worry off of you, because you do have a good plan in place. All right, so how can you start this process? Well, really, you can start it by contacting us because we do offer what's called a free long-term care strategy session. So at that meeting, we can meet, we can review your current estate planning documents if you currently have documents, make sure that they're in good order, see if they need updated. And then we can really talk about what your specific goals are and help you develop a plan to make sure that your assets are protected, the decision makers are in place, and really just make sure everything is set in stone. So if you do get sick, you know what's going to happen. And then we always answer all of your questions. So every situation is unique. I don't think in my 6 years I've seen one plan that's been like another one because every family situation is different. So you can come with all your questions. We answer all of your questions. And then based on your goals, we develop that plan for you. So then at the end of that, what you'll get out of that meeting is you'll know what documents you'll need. Okay, if yours are in good order, if we have to get them updated, you'll know what all of your options are if you were to get sick, and need long-term care. And then you'll get peace of mind because you'll know that you're starting the process, going through this, making sure that everything is in place. And then if you decide to proceed with our office, what we'll do after our meeting is we'll start developing a plan of recommendations that we'll go over with you in great detail to make sure you're okay with everything, whether setting up a trust or putting assets into the trust. We would go over all of that with you in detail. And then we would really work with you every step of the way to make sure that plan is implemented. So if we do transfer assets, we help you transfer those. We fill out all the paperwork and you would just have to sign it. So you really wouldn't have to worry about that. We would be there from start to finish. And then the good thing about this meeting is it is free. So we don't charge for this initial consultation. It's free, so you can sign up and hear what we have to say. And then if you want to move forward, then we will quote fees at that time. All right, so if you are interested, we do have the information here on our screen. You can go online at chatwithsgy.com, or you can call the 800 number, 800-351-8334. So I'll just repeat that again, 800-351-8334. And again, that consultation is free. All right, so I will hand it back over to Kyle, and I believe he has a giveaway for you and a survey and some wrap-up items here.
Yep, thanks, Brittany. I put there in the chat the links to the Second Half of Life podcast, as I mentioned, and our YouTube channel. You can sign up for our newsletter list. It's a quarterly newsletter. We only do four a year. You can get that sent to your email, or if you want a physical copy, you can request that. And if you want to sign up for our seminar list so that you're updated on upcoming virtual events and when we're going to go back in person. It looks like maybe September is what I'm hearing. So yay, we're going to get back to in-person stuff. So that's good. You saw there on the screen there too, a book giveaway. If you want a copy of the book, feel free to let me know via email and we can get a copy out to you. And then as Brittany and Tammy mentioned, the website again, chatwithsgy.com. You can schedule an appointment there. There's appointments listed and you can just couple clicks and set one up there. You don't even have to talk to anyone. So whichever you prefer. Again, toll-free number 800-351-8334. And we are in Williamsport, 413 Washington Boulevard and State College, 328 South Atherton Street, and Wyalusing and Wysocks.